Shalom everyone, and today we're studying Parashat Ekev, the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, chapter 7, verse 12. והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם. Following you keeping these laws, and you observe and do them, and God your Lord will observe the covenant and the loving kindness that he vowed to your forefathers. Okay, that's how it starts. That's the name Ekev, following, which means there's a cause and effect. However, it is basically like many parashot, we have the same concept repeating itself. And what is this concept if we realize we have the most two famous verses in this parasha. One is, we can find it later on in chapter 8. Chapter 8, verse 3. And God tortured you and starved you and fed you the manna that you didn't know and your forefathers never knew, for the purpose of make you aware that כי לא על הלחם לבדו יחיה אדם, a person cannot live off the bread alone. כי על כל מוצא פי השם יחיה אדם, but on what comes out of God's mouth. Okay, this is one very famous, we can say this is one of the most famous verses in the whole Torah. And in the end of that same paragraph, verse 10, chapter 8, verse 10, ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את אדוני אלוהיך על הארץ הטובה שנתן לך. And you will eat and be satiated, and you bless the Lord your God for the good land that he gave you. Okay, what is the concept that is emphasized with these two major verses that, as I said before, we see that some parashot come one after another, but all of them emphasize the same concept. Okay, the concept that we are talking about, we saw it last week in Parashat Vayetchanan. It was about prayers. However, there was one amazing concept. You can find it in the Zohar when it says about the Shema Yisrael and also about the whole concept of prayer. That the Zohar is teaching us when we have the Shema Yisrael, you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and then Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. These are two verses that are kept together, and what is the purpose for that? So the Zohar is saying when we say in the end of every prayer, Bayom Hahu, the end of the morning prayer, Shacharit, afternoon prayer, Mincha, evening prayer, Ma'ariv, Arvit, we say Aleinu Leshabeach, and the last verse of the Aleinu Leshabeach, this is the sealing prayer, always, Bayom Hahu yeh Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. On that day, the day of redemption for all of humanity, God will be one and his name will be one. And the Zohar is asking why it doesn't say God and his name will be one. And what the Zohar is teaching us, that's equivalent to what we read in the Shema Yisrael and also what we have in Parashat Ekev. There's a very important concept that for God to be one, which means when we unite the upper sephirot of the upper dimension to be one, how do we do that? With our actions, with our thoughts, with our speech, with our prayers, we unite the upper sephirot. And then when we unite, in addition to that, also the world of humanity, the physical world, only after you get the union above and below, then you have the union between above and below. It's a concept that is repeating itself many times because, again, we have to understand that when we are talking about God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that is infinite, endless, beyond anything human logic can even think about, perceive, and so on, has no name. Why? Because a name is a definition. Definition comes from defining, okay? It's a boundary. Of course, God is beyond boundary. So therefore, the Kabbalists prefer to call, when they refer to the creator of the universe, they prefer to call him the endless or the essence, which means endless means infinite, no finite, no boundaries. So that's why you call it the endless. So when we are talking about the name of God, there's the many names in the Torah for God, and the Kabbalists teach us that the different names of God that appear in the Torah, and they appear everywhere, it is about God's illuminations. The moment you have a name, it's a definition. The moment it's a definition, it's not the Almighty himself anymore. It's an emanation that emanates from the endless. Okay? Now, this is when I can already define it by naming it. So, when we are talking about it, we understand the story of why do bad things happen to good people. If God is so good and God is so great, how come he's not showing himself to everyone? And the answer is, we are humans. We were created in the empty space after the contraction in order for us to have free will. If we had a revelation, ongoing revelation of God's endless power, we will evaporate and disexist because endless is the creator, we are finite. So finite beings cannot exist in the realm of the infinity. So how does God give us or feeds us with his bliss? And the answer is through the Sephirot. Sephirot, these are emanations that emanate from the endless. They are already part of the creation. They're not anymore part of the creator. Of course, they're being sustained by the creator. How do you know they're being sustained? Because without the creator feeding everything in our universe with his bliss endlessly, ongoingly, every split second, creation will stop to exist, because creation cannot exist unless the flow of light, the flow of life, of bliss, continues to flow through it. Same way as we explained, any electric device, when it's working, especially AC, the flow of light through everything, the flow of electricity, the flow of energy is ongoing, but is kind of intermittent. What does it mean? Because when we're talking about huge amount of energy, anything physical cannot hold it. Therefore, you have AC different than DC. AC means it comes and it goes. It comes and it goes because the infinite energy that is coming into the creation cannot withstand holding on to it. So it comes and it goes immediately, like who knows how many billions of times every split second. So yes, the creator is feeding the creation every split second, Without that, the creation won't be able to exist. However, in order for the endless light to feed the creation, same way with the AC electricity that we have at home, it has to come from the power station through transformers. And these transformers are basically kind of screens that they bring down the intensity of the light force, of the energy force, till it comes to our socket. It is eliminated so to a level that our devices can basically use them without blowing. And many of them today, they need an additional transformer because, smartphones, tell all of these, like there's a lot of machinery on computers, they cannot work on AC 220 or 110. They work on much lower intensity of electricity, and that's why they need an additional transformer. So same thing with us. Those transformers are emanations from the Creator that they simply bring down kind of screening or filtering the endless light of the Creator level by level till they come to our level. We have an effect over some of these transformers, some of these emanations, and when we make certain acts below, it can affect the sephirot, the emanations above. So when we put them together, when we connect them together, then they are capable of shining their bliss or God's bliss to our dimension. When we act in a very negative way, we create separation in the sphirot of the emanations, and the moment they separate and they're not in line, they're not united, then we experience in our world kind of a drought. There's less flow of bliss that can get, and if the effect can be diseases, lack of sustenance, lack of peace, lack of order, any kind of negativity. This is because we have no idea how, or we simply do not take responsibility for uniting the Sephirot in the upper dimension. It's not the uppermost dimension, but it's the dimension that is between the endless light of God and our dimension. So I gave you just standing 1 foot, the explaining, the explanation of the system of Sephirot or emanations, that these are basically, they explain to us how God is endless and his love is endless. However, we do not always experience that endless flow of bliss in our physical world. Now, in order for the bliss to flow, we have a way which is connecting to that bliss. And in order to connect to that bliss, we need to have an awareness that our physical reality, our physical dimension is not alone. What you see is not what you get. So of course, modern physics is teaching us that what you see is basically nothing. Why? Because you can't see atoms, you can't see radio waves, you cannot see Röntgen waves. There's so many kind of vibrations and information around us, that frequencies that we have no idea with our 5 senses about their existence. We discovered them during the last few centuries through a lot of research, and we found it, and we're still finding all the time new wavelengths and new radiations, frequencies and particles that we had no idea about their existence just a century ago, 50 years ago, even 10 years ago. So it's all about our limitation. So when we understand that we are creatures that are supposed to live and exist in two different dimensions simultaneously, which means in the spiritual realm and in the physical realm simultaneously, which means every human being has a physical body that is basically ruled under the physical uh, rules of nature. However, the physical body also has a soul, and the soul is also ruled by the rules of the upper dimension. And that upper dimension affects the soul. The soul has the role of affecting the upper dimensions by learning how to connect to it. And if there is harmony between the soul and the upper dimension, that harmony will reflect through the body and its organs. And we spoke a lot about it in Parashat Pinchas. So this is really important for us to understand that the two universes are highly organized, highly sophisticated, very much connected, and what really determines the level of the connection, what kind of a connection, is our consciousness. So when a person is totally materialistic, which means he's in total denial there is a soul. Like, you go to the academy today, oh, a soul is an invention of the ancients, but it doesn't exist. It's a myth. Why? Because there's no proof. We never found the soul. Yes, till more than 100 years ago, there were no proofs for atoms. Does that mean atoms did not exist? There were no proofs for subatomic particles. Does that mean that didn't exist till science discovered it? There were no proof for nuclear power. Does that mean it didn't exist? What about radio waves? There were no proofs for its existence till till the 19th century. What are you talking about? So if you're a scientist, you should have some humility. You should be a little bit humble that science did not discover yet everything. And there are things that we didn't discover yet. So you can say we have no physical proofs yet for the existence of the soul. However, we know, even today, with modern medicine, that there's a very strong connection between health, healing, and awareness. Okay? So, spiritual well being will manifest itself with a physical well being. And when you don't have any spiritual well being, which means you have no spiritual awareness at all, and you live a very materialistic, solely materialistic life, your life is much more miserable. Why? Because you're lacking something. More than half of your awareness, your existence, is under denial. How can you be happy like this? And that's one of the reasons that we see today that although materialistically we are more fortunate than any generation in history before, mentally, we are more depressed and upset than any generation before. Why is it? Maybe because, as it says over here, when you, or let's say again, reading the first verse of this Torah reading, Ekev, chapter 7, verse 12, following, you listening the laws, and you observe and do, which means this expression of observance is about awareness, and doing is about physical action. If you understand that every action has to be connected to the two realms of reality, the spiritual and the physical, the soul dimension and the body dimension, both dimensions must be in union in order for our world to be functional. And that is exactly what Parashat Ekev is about. Moses is warning the Israelites, if you are going to forget that idea that you live in a multi-dimensional universe, if you forget that and you think that the physical reality, whatever you see, hear, smell, touch, taste, and so on, this is only what you've got, you have a huge problem. And therefore, when we are talking about that verse that I read before, כי לא על הלחם לבדו יחיה אדם. A human being cannot live on the bread alone. What does it mean? That a person, it's not that you need, music and art and something like this to feed your soul. We're talking about much higher than that. Our existence needs to be watched, observed, and maintained in both realms. As it says, "Vaya bayom hahu Hashem echad u'shmo echad." God will be one, which means the realms of the Sfirot above must be united, and they will be united through our actions. This is exactly the whole consciousness of understanding what the Torah is about. Human actions have an effect over the lower sefirot of the tree of life. When we unite them with prayers, meditation, mitzvot means actions. The actions, like, let's say, a lot of people by mistake call what is a mitzvah a good deed. No, not exactly. Not every good deed is a mitzvah. What makes a good deed a mitzvah? When a person, let's say, is giving charity, and he's giving charity not because it is right, not because the person needs and you have enough you can share with that person. That's a good deed. When you give charity, you help somebody else. Why? Because it's nice. Why? Because we humans, we have to help each other. When you do that, it is a good deed, but it's not a mitzvah. What makes it a mitzvah? When you have that consciousness that by having the awareness that by delivering money, food, any act of kindness from one person to another, you create a flow of spiritual energy in the upper dimensions too. That makes it a mitzvah, in addition to the good deed that you've done, because the awareness is what's making it happening. I don't know if you ever read Harry Potter, the books, or watched the movie, but Rowling is genius in about teaching us through the scenes of this book that if you want to perform magic, you need to mean it. You have to be focused on that. You have to really want it. You really have to imagine it. You have to be excited about it. You have to invest. Otherwise, you can say the incantation, but it does nothing. It does nothing. Nothing will happen. Yes, but I said the magical word. This is not enough. It needs to have a desire, excitement, emotion. You have to be involved in it. You have to really believe in that. You really have to be in a faith that by saying the incantation, you create something in the upper world, the world which is the dimension beyond, not just the physical. Okay? Where is she taking it from? Oh, Rowling's read a lot of books about magic, and for centuries, millennia, whoever was trying to learn magic was talking about it. It won't happen unless you really mean that. Unless you're really emotionally involved and you really have that intention, direction, need, want, and desire. If you're not that much emotionally and mentally involved in that, the incantation is totally meaningless. Mitzvah is exactly on the same realm. It is a magical action which has a physical dimension, which means there are the words that you say of the blessings. There are the physical actions of doing any kind of a mitzvah that you find 613 mitzvot in the 5 books of Moses. However, if you do not have the awareness that the mitzvah is awakening, connecting, the physical action, the physical words are there to awaken something that happens in the dimension above, this is not a mitzvah. This is just nothing, just nothing. Okay? So when you are saying, oh, that person was so religious, however, he was never happy, was always full of doubt, but he still kept doing all the mitzvot. We have a problem over here. Why? Because when a person is really, let's go back to Rawlings. You cannot really do the mitzvot if you don't really intend to do that. And if you really connect to it, you have to experience results. You feel something. You feel the change. You feel that you created a creation. You can't be frustrated that you just kept a tradition and nothing, it didn't help you. What does that mean? You just did tradition. You just mention incantations, blessings, perform some mitzvot, maybe Shabbat, but you did it all like a little child that, I'll do the right things and God will write it for me on a little book and he will give you special points or stickers as a reward for being a good boy or good girl and performing the rituals. Doesn't work this way. You want to make things happen, you have to use your brain, your mind, your heart to awaken the upper sefirot, connect them with the physical action, and only then you will see the results. What will be the result? The results will be the bliss will flow through your life. First of all, you feel different about everything you do. Second, you will see that your life will be much more reasonable because you will feel the bliss flowing through your body, through your action, through your words, through your physical reality, your home, and everything. Everything will be with more bliss, with more light. So what is Moses saying? Let's go back. Vaya Ekev tishmeun. Following, you listening to these laws, and you observe. Observe means that you be fully involved in the consciousness that is connected to that. Ve'asitem, and you do them. Some people say God loves us, so who cares if I'm eating kosher or kosher style or something like this? He loves me, everything will be okay. Moses says, no, you have to be exact and you have to perfect it in the consciousness level and in the physical level. Both dimensions must be kept, done properly. You should say it right. You should mean it right. You should understand it. That's why it says, Vaya Hashem echad u'shmo echad. You have to unite the upper sefirot by your intentions, meaning, understanding, and you have to unite the physical world by being aware to the physical actions that you are performing. When you do that, the result will be, and God will observe the covenant. The meaning of covenant, the word called brit, which translated into a covenant. Covenant means a connection that is being kept by both sides. If one side does not keep the covenant, there's no covenant and there's no connection. So here the word covenant has a double meaning. When both sides keep the covenant, there is a connection, and therefore, what's the purpose of the covenant? Every covenant is about it's a deal. It's a deal of some power exchange. Let's say there's a covenant between among the nations of NATO. Okay, it's supposed to be not just that everybody say, "Oh, we are there for you." It means also that they share weapons, they share protection, they share something physical, real is happening, so they can feel more secure. But if you don't keep your side, there's no covenant. And then the other side is not in a covenant because nobody cares about promises. Yes, we said some words, we signed some papers, who cares? That's not a covenant. That's not a treaty. This is nothing. These just empty words. So keeping a covenant means there is some value coming out of the covenant. What's the value? And here Moses is saying very clearly, you keep the covenant, there is a connection. So there's a connection. It means covenant, let's say, among a whole bunch of states and countries. That means there must be some advantage, either by protection or sharing produce, commodities and stuff like this. You get something for having covenant. If you have a covenant, you get nothing for that. So what do you need the covenant for? So you have no covenant. He says the moment you have the covenant, then verse 13, Va'evcha uverachecha, and he will love you and will bless you. Ve'irbecha and multiply you. Uverach pri bitnecha ufri admatecha, will bless the fruit of your own children, the fruit of your land, your deganecha, your grains, tiroshecha, your wine, vitzarecha, your oil, shigar alafecha, the birth of your sheep, והשתרות צונך על האדמה שנשבע לאבותיך לתת לך, on the land that God vowed to your forefathers to give you, which means in order to have that blessing, which is connected to food, children, as we said, all kinds of food, and the land, a place to enjoy that food, that needs keeping the covenant. And that means you need to keep the awareness that you live in a double dimension universe, that it's your job to connect to maintain. Otherwise, the flow of, here it's not commodities and goods, it is a flow of positive light that will not continue. The moment the flow of energy does not continue, everything else will collapse. Now, how do we see that? So as we said before, a human being cannot live over the bread alone, which means just having food is not enough. Which means in the case that you have enough food and security, does that mean that your life is secured? No, because as I said before, as I quoted before, all of that needs two dimensions. You need what comes from God's mouth. Now, if you understand that God has no mouth, but the Torah speaks about God's hand, eyes, ears, mouth. So what are we talking about? Is he an idol? No. When we are talking about the Sefirot, the names of the Sefirot, we have Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, so on and so on. However, you can also call them you call Binah ears, Chochmah eyes, Tiferet is the nose, the mouth is Malchut, right hand is Chesed, left hand is Gevurah. There are some codes over here. So when you're talking about what's coming from God's mouth, he has no mouth. But we are talking about what's coming from Sefirat Malchut. What is Sefirat Malchut? It's a manifestation. When we unite the upper Sefirot, then the flow comes to our lives. And what do we see? We see the bliss. You see good fortune. You see that things go and happen and connect. And there's synchronicity. And you feel like you're blessed. This is Motza Pi Hashem, what comes out of God's mouth. And we have to understand that developing this kind of consciousness is essential for a full and successful life, which means not being spiritual is basically so lame, such it's a deficiency. It's worse than not having a leg or hands. It's basically when you're not activating your mind to connect to the universe beyond, you're basically so crippled that your body and your whatever your well-being will be simply drained over the years. And you don't understand why is it that you work so hard, and some people do have, it looks like they have bliss. Yes, but they have houses and they don't enjoy them. They have cars and they never satisfied. They eat the best food in the best restaurant, but they are never satiated. This is the curse. This is the horrible curse. And therefore, where it says in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, something really important, just the beginning of that verse about, and a human being cannot live just on the bread. And it says, verse number 3, chapter 8, ויענך וירעיבך ויאכילך את המן אשר לא ידעת. And God, it could be torture you and starve you by feeding the manna. How would feeding the manna will torture you? So the most proper translation over here is not looking at the word vayancha will torture you, although that meaning is also there, but vayancha from the word ani, making poor. When the people of Israel, 40 years in the desert, had to live almost daily over just the manna. And the manna, the story is that the manna was kind of lechem oni, poor bread. It looked like just like a pudding, white pudding. That's the way they describe it. How long can you live on white pudding? Okay? And then it says if you cooked it and you boiled it and you fried it, it tasted like donut. How long can you live on a donut? Okay, and the answer is that when the Israelites ate from the manna had the exact taste that you imagined. So if you were poorly equipped with imagination, and you could imagine just donuts, it tasted only like donuts. And that was horrible. You felt really poor. If you had a very, very developed imagination, you could eat every portion, the most amazing kind of food. You just had to be imaginative, creative with imagination, sweet and sour and salt and everything, all the taste. You just had to. So if you did not invest imagination, you felt poor and hungry because of eating the manna. That forced the Israelites through 40 years in the desert to extend their consciousness. Just imagine 40 years in the desert. It was a huge school of magic. Moses was the great teacher. Aaron was also the great teacher, and Miriam. And they taught the Israelites basically pure magic, how to eat the manna and enjoy it. Although the physical substance they ate had no structure, no taste. And when you develop that part of your brain, when you develop that part of your soul, then the whole world will be so much different, so much rich. So rich. And then the other issue is, so why do we mention in the end of that paragraph and you should, ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את אדוני אלוהיך על הארץ הטובה שנתן לך. And you eat, and you satiate, and you bless the Lord your God. Why do we need to bless God? Oh yes, you have to be thankful. This is correct. Being thankful is essential. It's known today scientifically. Thankful people, they are more happy than people that don't bother being thankful. They don't appreciate, so they never enjoy it completely. Okay? We learn from that about the blessing, and here we have one of the most amazing parts of the Zohar that speaks about the power of the blessing. And here it says that there's amazing Zohar about it. מצווה זו היא לברך את הקדוש ברוך הוא על כל מה שאכל ושתה ונהנה בעולם הזה. It's a mitzvah. As we said, mitzvah is not tradition. Mitzvah is not a commandment. Doesn't mean so in Hebrew. More than that, the Talmud and the Zohar are so much against the word commandment. They say commandment, tzav, is idol worshiping. Only slaves follow commandments. Free human beings who are free to travel in all dimensions with their thoughts, intentions, and mind, they are the only ones who can keep the mitzvot and observe them. You cannot observe the mitzvot if you are a slave. The slave is exempt of the mitzvot. So when you do things out of commandment, you are a slave, and your slave is not within the realm of fulfilling the mitzvot, because slaves are not capable of performing magic, because they are blocked mentally. They don't believe in themselves. That's why they're slaves. So when it says it's a mitzvah to bless God for all what the person eats, drinks, and enjoys in this world, if he does not bless, he is a thief, a robber, relatively to God. שכתוב גוזל אביו ואמו. So how do we understand that? So that takes us again to the previous parasha, Parashat Vayetchanan. On Parashat Vayetchanan, we have a group of mitzvot. Do not kill, do not steal, do not lie, do not cheat, do not testify false with testimony. All of these existed already in the code of laws of Mesopotamia or the code of law of Egypt. What's the big deal? The revelation on Mount Sinai, if God is coming to tell us what we already know. And the Zohar is explaining to us that the difference is huge, so big, that only when you understand the difference, you understand what happened on Mount Sinai. Yes, we know that in order to keep a rich society, that you can tax that society, if you are the government, you have to give people the security, the trust, the certainty that their property is secured. So when people feel that their property is secured, protected, they have the incentive to work hard and to produce fortune, value. Could be crops, could be commodities, everything. So in the ancient times, the mafias that became basically the governments, they realize the more security you give to your subjects, the more wealth they will produce. Okay? Some, till today, they don't understand that, and they think the more they rob their society, the richer they become. That's the best. So you see along history, governments that robbed their citizens, and you see how the subjects, become poorer and poorer, A, because they're being robbed, B, because they don't have any incentive to create fortune value because they know it's going to be robbed. So then you see when the government become richer and richer and the subjects become poorer and poorer. You know it's not going to work. You know that those governments are not smart enough. They think that with their fortune they can exploit their subjects and also terrorize them. That's called tyrannies and dictatorships. Usually history teaches us that that cannot last too long. And look what happened to Gaddafi, what happened to Saddam Hussein, what happened to Ceausescu, what happened to the Soviet Union. This is really the story of tyrants. It doesn't work. So the ancients realized that if you secure people's assets and their right for their property by instilling those laws of do not steal, do not kill, and so on, people have the incentive to create fortune and value. Then you can tax them like somehow within normal logic. And then people, as long as it's fair, people are not alarmed and upset, and they are willing to pay because they know they get the service for that payment. So they are, in that case, they are allowing the governments to get the power, the weapons, violence, the right to use violence against the citizens, what is police and army and stuff like this, in order to keep the order. So most people, most of the time, can create fortune and value. However, this, so if you had an honest, righteous king, and then the kingdom will thrive, usually his son, if not his son, his grandson, will become foolish enough to take everything from his subjects, and the result will be that he will lose his kingdom, him or his son, or so on and so forth. That's the name of the game. And here the Torah is saying something really different. The Torah is saying, you want to be happy. You want to be fulfilled. You want to feel bliss. You have to understand that you can achieve that state of bliss if when you respect other people's rights for happiness, which means when you feel happiness and fulfillment is because you gained the right to use property, money, rightfully, which means either you paid for it or you worked hard for it, which means, as we said, the joy, the bliss of the Creator flows through the Sfirot, and then it flows through everything physical. So when you create any kind of value and fortune, it's not that just the physical aspect of that value or fortune belongs to you, also the spiritual bliss in it belongs to you. So when you teach people that yes, you can have bliss from money, possessions, and so on. However, it's very important how you acquire it, which means when you steal money or property, what's wrong with that? Yes, in the physical world, you can see that you stole something. Now it's in your possession. But can you steal bliss? And that's exactly what the Torah is saying. That was a big difference on Mount Sinai. Bliss you have to earn also. So when you steal property, when you steal commodities, when you steal valuables, when you steal food, you cannot enjoy the bliss that flows and sustains that physical appearance because it's stolen. When you kill in order to achieve power, you basically destroy the image of God. The cause and effect over here is stretching over few dimensions. So therefore, when you don't make the blessing over the food, it's like stealing, which means uh, if let's say I come and I steal somebody's car, can I really enjoy the car? The Torah tells you no. Oh, you can superficially enjoy the car, okay? But you want to understand why you feel somehow depleted. Because you stole only the physical, elusive dimension of the car. You didn't get the whole thing. Same about a house. What about stealing a country? You know, uh, for millennia, different countries, different empires tried to conquer the land of Israel, colonize it, and take it for themselves. What's the big problem over here? The big problem, if you look at it carefully, with the laws of possession that the Torah is teaching us is something amazing you have to understand. Let's say if somebody took away my house, okay, by force, and then somehow he will never be able to enjoy that house because it's stolen. He took over just a physical dimension, but the spiritual dimension still belongs to me. How long does it belong to me? As long as I am conscious about it, that it belongs to me. So, uh, different countries try to take over the land of Israel. So the Babylonians took over, but finally King Cyrus returned the land to the Jews. Okay? And the Jews finally took over the whole land in the time of the Maccabees, Hashmonaim. But then came the Romans, and they were full blast colonizers, and they were fighting, and one rebellion after a rebellion. Every rebellion, they took more Jews into captivity, sold them as slaves, killed more Jews, took over more lands. Slowly, slowly, they colonized more and more parts of the land. Still, a lot of Jews stayed on the land. Whoever finished the colonization were the Crusaders. When the Crusaders are coming to the land of Israel, the 11th century, there's still hundreds of thousands of Jews in the land of Israel. They're still fighting together with the Muslims against the Crusaders. But then the Crusaders, they simply finish the job. They eliminate almost all the Jews in the land of Israel. First time in history, the land of Israel is almost, since Joshua, the land of Israel is empty of Jews. Almost, they were still here and there, but basically it is. So why they can't enjoy the land? Why the Crusaders could never feel locals? They ruled the land for over a century, 2 centuries. Okay, and then the Muslims took over and they still could not own the land. The Seljuks, the Mamelukes, and then the Ottomans, the land was falling apart more and more and more and being desolated because the Torah said something very clear. If the owner of the land is still conscious and never gave up on the land, it's still the energy of the land, the spiritual dimension of the land still belongs to the owner. And when we speak about Vachata, what does it say over here? Moses is giving the instruction very carefully. Ve'achalta ve'sevata u'verachta. What did we read? And you eat and you bless the Lord your God for the good land that he gave you. So every time, for thousands of years, not just from the first destruction of the first temple and the first exile, and not just after the Romans destroyed the temple, but even after the Crusaders totally eliminated Jews from the land just 1,000 years ago. Every Jew around the world, every time he was eating, he said, Uvnei Yerushalayim Mirakodesh B'mira B'yameinu, and build the land, Jerusalem, and the Holy Land fast, speedily in nowadays, which means if you say that every time you eat a fruit, every time you eat bread, every time that you eat anything big, and you keep on saying that few times a day, you did not give up. And if you did not give up, the land is still yours. And you see, that is one of the most powerful tools. As long as you don't give it up, it is still yours. And if it's still yours, finally the whole world will see that it is yours because you'll be able to take over it. But more than that, the people who took the land from you, they could never enjoy it. They tried to rob the land. They tried to exploit the land. But the land became so barren, such a desert, they could not enjoy. Only later on, when the Jews are coming back and they're starting to dry the swamps and revive the desert, and the land is starting to give fruits again, like before. Why? Because they never gave up on the land. They are, therefore, you could say, but 1,000 years you haven't been here. Yeah, but never gave up. Each one of us was saying few times a day, when you blessing after the food, that, dear God, I ate a fig, I ate an olive, I drank wine, I ate a cake, I ate some bread. And that reminds me that Jerusalem is mine, and please God, build Jerusalem again, build the Holy Land again, and it will be there. And that is how the state of mind and awareness is so powerful that it can win the Romans, the Roman colonialist, the Crusader colonialism, the Ottoman Empire colonialism, the Arab colonialism. All of that was defeated because the rightful owners came back, because it was always theirs, because they never gave up on it. But more than that, here we're talking about, so they are the only ones who can really enjoy the land and see the fruits of the land. But that is in a big scale. In a small scale, as we said before, משום שהברכות שאדם מברך את הקדוש ברוך הוא, when a person is blessing over the food, באים להמשיך חיים ממקור החיים. The purpose of the blessing is to draw life from the source of life, which means every time we bless over the food, we awaken the flow of light in the tree of life. So a lot of Jews do bless over the food. A lot of people do bless, say to God, thank you for giving us the food. Yes, this is, again, very nice. When people are appreciative and thankful for whatever they've got, that's a guarantee for happiness. But that's not enough. When you say the blessing, you basically, what you say, when we say the blessing over the fruit of the tree, what are the words? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'etz. The one who creates the fruit of the tree. It doesn't say who created, but I'm holding the apple or the orange in my hand. God already created it in the past. No, remember the AC? The AC, which means God's bliss flows through physicality. But like AC, physicality cannot hold that awesome power. So it comes like AC, in and out, in and out, in and out. Mati velo mati. It's touching and not touching, touching and not touching. Otherwise, the endless light of the Creator will explode. Reality, which means the creation of the fruit happens right now as I speak. If not God instilling the bliss and his power into the fruit right now in this second, the fruit won't exist. So what I'm saying, when I'm saying the blessing, I'm basically incorporating, connecting my soul to the bliss that flows right now through the fruit or the bread or the banana. It doesn't matter, or the coffee I drink or the water I drink. So we have to remember that when we are talking about the blessing is about awakening and awareness that yes, I eat a fruit, I eat bread, I drink coffee. Okay. However, what I see is only external. To be really totally fulfilled, I need to connect to the, the spiritual dimension. And for that, I need to awaken that by the words of my mouth. So that's why when a person is blessing, says the Zohar, the words of the blessings, they draw the life from the source of life to his holy name, Lishma Kadosh El Kadosh, to his holy name. So what I need to draw light into the name of God. Yes, that's what I said in the beginning. That Vayom Hahu Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. How would the name of God will be one? How would it be fulfilled by our words, consciousness, and actions? The names of God that we pronounce are not God. They are basically emanations of God. But these emanations will revive, we light them up by saying them with the consciousness of bringing the bliss, the power, the light, the essence into them, and then we unite them together with the physical action. And that moment we create the unity of the upper world and the lower world, and that is the purpose of human life. If you don't do that, you'll be deprived, basically cursed forever. So sad how materialism is so responsible, robbing human beings from their true meaning, being magical creatures that instill the bliss into what they touch, see, and deal with. And it's like you open the flow of this magical holy oil that flows from the upper Sefirot. There's a constellation of, Sefirot, of emanations, that when we pronounce the blessings, and we make the blessing over the food, over everything, then it flows. We have to think about it. We have to imagine that. We have to want it. And as I go back to J.K. Rowling's, if you don't really mean that, nothing happens. Nothing happens. You can't just say, oh God, I said it. Why nothing happened? Because you didn't really mean that. You just wanted to get by. You're not magical. You're just a mogul. And when you bring down that bliss, that eternal oil, which is the bliss, and that brings that bliss not just to you and to what you bless, to the whole world. This is verse 1 in the Zohar of Parashat Ekev. So therefore, when we say, V'achalta v'savata uve'achta, and you will eat, and you will satiate, and you'll bless the Lord your God. How can I bless the Lord your God? I'm not blessing the creator of the universe. When I bless, I allow the creator of the universe to instill the flow of his bliss into the Sefirot of the upper dimension and the lower dimension. Both of them are being given to us humans to play with, to unite, and then you want to be satiated. That's the only way to achieve a real spiritual satiation. So with that state of mind, we will understand that humanity must go in that direction till we find the magic, till we find the duty, till we find that how powerful each one of us is. And it's not just doing physical actions, it's also the awareness behind every action. So therefore, you do not steal, not because you're being caught or because it's not nice. You do not steal because you understand it's fruitless, useless. What if you steal and you can't enjoy it and you always feel depleted? What for? And that's why when it says in Isaiah chapter 11. When uh, when peace will come to the world and everybody will live in peace, and even the leopard will live together with the lamb. How would that happen? Where the earth will be full with the knowledge of God like water cover the sea. When every human being understands that, then people won't steal and won't cheat each other and won't exploit each other and won't terrorize each other just because they understand how this universe is structured. And that is stronger than any police. Then we'll have peace, tranquility, and happiness all over the world. Thank you.